All right. Good evening to you all, and thank you for according us your time this evening. We shall not keep you for long. Yesterday, I'm sure those of you who were here recall that I raised an objection on the way the processes were being conducted in the instance where the Electoral Commission of Zambia were going to start disseminating the results of Feira constituency. And my concern, just to remind you, yesterday was that there was a gap, that the stakeholders had not gone through the document that they were going to bring before the face of the public in form of verification as well as approval. I also went further to display what was embossed on that document yesterday, and if you recall, it was embossed pending approval. We had a meeting, and after the meeting, one of my colleagues did address you to bring you up to speed with what we had discussed with the ECZ, and in short, they told us they would come back to us in due course. They did come back to us in that due course, and what we were informed by Mr. Mwanamonga, Ms. Patricia Luhanga, and the Council for the Electoral Commission of Zambia was that, contrary to what was going on in 2016, they first of all conceded to the fact that they had intended to release the Feira election results prematurely. And we did understand because they did concede. Going forward, they said that before they release any results, they would have to approve them themselves. A little bit of a funny situation where one wants to mark their own examination. And we were also told that all the political parties, including the smaller family members of political parties, who may not have had the capacity to have polling agents in all the 12,166 plus or minus polling stations, that it was their baby to come up with their documents of reference, and that the ECZ was not going to share their documents, which we found to be a little bit anomalous. Be that as it may, we were informed that they were going to share the approved results before dissemination, something that I think happened this afternoon on the ones that they disseminated. And anytime now, there are agents who are waiting to go through those results for cross-checking before they announce. Today's business is we want to inform the nation what we have found out today. And we attribute their refusal for us to go through this document, okay? This document together with them, to work together with them. This is called a record of proceedings, which has details of the candidates, details of their scores, as obtained from the primary source document called Gen 20, which is pasted on this particular record of proceedings, that after it is checked and approved at the constituency coalition point. In this case, this is Mazabuka, the constituency that I represent. We discovered this morning in Mazabuka that one among the ECZ employees with the function of data entry was manipulating figures, and we'll demonstrate to you how. And we suspect that is the reason why the ECZ, and our suspicion may culminate in us thinking they are colluding with selected officers in the districts to reduce votes for certain candidates, and we will prove to you in a minute. This we will share with you once I'm done. This is an ECZ document. It is the primary source document, also known as Gen 20. This is the document that is filled in at the polling station. And once it's filled in at the polling station, upon conclusion of the count of the votes, with all representatives of the stakeholders, in this case the political parties, they sign at the bottom here. As you can see, in this case, this is a polling station at Old Man Lionel Coventry's farm in Lubombo Ward in Mazabuka, a polling station called Hamapula. At Hamapula polling, Mr. Edgar Lungu of the PF, 14 votes, 14 votes. I will go then to Mr. Fred Membe of Socialist Party, 1 vote. Mr. Nevas Mumba of the MMD, 0 votes. Mr. Sean Tembo of the PEP, 1 vote. Mr. Mwamba Musanda of the UNIP, 0 votes. Mr. Stephen Yurinda of NAREP, Mr. Chanda Charles of UPPZ, 0 votes. Mr. Chisela of ZUSD, 0 votes. Mr. Hamududu of PNUP, 0 votes. Mr. Karikalawa of the DP, 0 votes. Ms. Kateka Chishala of the New Heritage Party, 0 votes. This is the primary source document that we, political parties, rely upon. The coalition or culmination of this document from all polling stations, in the case of Mazabuka, where I represent, there are 91. They then collapse into this document. That's what happens. This at the polling station, this at the civic center. These are summarized onto this. Now, hear me out. We move from one step to another. These are ECZ documents. And I want to make a case here to show you that from where we stand, we are convinced beyond any reasonable doubt that the ECZ are actually part and parcel of the delay of these processes.
Yes.
And there should be no passing the buck. This is not a political rally. We have information to disseminate to the country. This is not a political rally. We want to make sure that we are as clear as possible. So I'm requesting that there should be no heckling or noises so that the information can go into the public unadulterated. This document is a summary of all the 91 polling stations in Mazabuka. Okay, here we go. Total number of votes cast at Hamapula, 393. Patricia Lohanga, and we have explained to her in as clear terms as possible in the manner that we are attempting to do right now. She has admitted these documents with a view that she will come back to us. In as far as we are concerned, the act of the ECZ refusing for the agents to look in Zambia is an attempt by themselves to undermine the credibility of this particular election. Because one of the fundamentals about an election, which is not an event, by the way, but a process, is that it must be transparent. You can see that figures were removed from Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, and if on each entry, this particular officer, working with whoever, can go ahead and remove a block figure such as 574, by the time you get to the 92nd polling station, or 91st polling stations, in the case of Mazabuga, which has 91, do your simple arithmetic. If you remove an average of 500 from one candidate, just in the twinkling of an eye, that you cut and paste on a wrong column on a candidate who they think may be not of total significance to change. And I say this with the greatest respect to Mr. Andford Banda, because this has nothing to do with him. They decided to remove those votes in order to make sure that at the bottom line, the end of the report, this is like a financial report, the figures tally of the total votes cast. So they cut from Mr. Hichilema and pasted it on Mr. Andford Banda, who was not even present to say these votes are not mine. This is the work of your commission called Electoral Commission of Zambia. We are waiting for them to come back to give us a position as to why this has happened. We think that these are sufficient grounds for a petition, and this is a real situation because all these documents are official documents of the ECZ, nothing that belongs to us. Contrary to this, we have heard the PF candidate, Mr. Edgar Chagwalungu, through a communique that is purported to have been written with a State House letterhead. A participant writing, I don't know to who, calling the elections unfair and unfree on account of what he alleges was the absence of polling agents in 3 regions of this country, namely Northwestern Province, Western Province, and also the Southern Province. This was reiterated by the Secretary General, I'm told, Mr. Davis Simuila, that they were dissatisfied because their agents were excluded from the processes. I would like us to stop and examine these claims together. It was the same Mr. Davis Simuila who at a forum was bubbling with confidence that the PF had won this election. It was the same man, together with one of the media people in PF, who said they have an effective PVT, parallel voter tabulation. And a PVT can only work not by osmosis, but by a warm body called a polling agent, who will have signed this document called Gen 20 and then disseminate this information to their PVT center. They said it themselves, that they have an effective PVT operation, and that according to them, they are winning this election by a landslide. How then can the same mouth speak two different languages at the same time? How then, in the presence, and for those of you who are interested, and I'm the chairman of elections in Mazabuka, I decided to take this matter to the wire by collecting all the Gen 20s, this document, from all the 91 polling stations in Mazabuka, all of them, to the exclusion of none. And mind you, this election went into the wee hours of Friday. Some of the results were coming out at 4, 5 in the morning. We have signatures from PF polling agents in all the 91 Gen 20s. We have them. What it means is that PF were present, and Mr. Mwila must now stop being a crybaby. He must stop being a crybaby. Both the PF candidates, Mr. Edgar Lungu and Mr. Mwila, do have a window, a properly established window to petition any results, and it's not done. It's never presented to the Electoral Commission of Zambia. It is presented on Independence Avenue at a place called the Constitutional Court. That's where their grievances should go, and not to every Jim and Jack to try and seek the court of public opinion. They should stop exciting people to seek in a matter that is so serious, to seek the court of the public opinion. We are inviting them to go to court and let this process continue unabated, undisturbed. Because that's what we stand for. We have demonstrated to you how ECZ have been manipulating our results as a reason why they refused for us to include the verification process under this document that is called the record of proceedings, the record of proceedings. I want the observers, both local and international, to mark my words on behalf of all the UPND and alliance partners and those who are outside the alliance, that we've put a red mark on this activity at Hamapula Farm. Because depending on the volume of this scam, it can tilt an election result. I'm sure you all understand that. I'm sure you all understand that one vote counts. What about 374 votes? We demand answers from the ECZ, and we shall wait patiently. But for now, and for fear of no contradiction, we want the ECZ to stop being heavy-handed. To stop being heavy-handed about queries, questions, or even objections, because this is a matter for the public and not a matter for the chosen few. Thank you very much. We'll take questions.
All right, so before we take questions, I think we have an addition from Mr. Siano.
I think it's spoken.
All right. Okay, so before we do that, someone might have a question by saying, why do we have other political parties if it concerns the UPND? the concern of other political parties, like in our